Hello, friends. Shalom. If you think about Jesus' ministry, every time Jesus did a healing, he was creating a new beginning for that other person. Imagine you live your whole life without seeing anything, and then suddenly you could see life is new, it's fresh. You've never heard anything before. All of a sudden you can hear Jesus heals your deafness. Suddenly everything is new. You've been possessed by a demon and you're set free. Everything is new. Jesus tells a story and it impacts your heart. Everything is new. Everything was new. All these things took place. But one of my favorite and the most powerful stories of new beginnings is the story of the prodigal son. Now, you know the story. A young man asks for and receives his inheritance while his father is still alive. And then he squanders that on wild living. We'll come back to talk about wild living here in a moment. A famine, though, comes into the land, and our prodigal gets desperate. Quick note of observation here. Even though the son is desperate, he does not go back to his father. He still continues to try to do things his own way. The whole idea of going back to his father never even seems to enter his mind. As his desperation grows, he determines to do whatever it takes to survive. That is very natural. That is a human instinct. Survival is a very strong human instinct. So when you see men and women who are experiencing homelessness do things that seem outlandish, they're doing it out of survival. But also, as I've alluded to, shame can be more powerful than even survival instinct. They will do everything they can except admit, go back, work to make things right. Shame is powerful, and it often hinders healing and growth. But what does that wild living look like? I imagine that then, as much as now, it looks very much the same. Addiction, rabble-rousing, promiscuous relationships. Yet today, my friends, if we would see that prodigal, we would pay him to stay in that lifestyle. You ask, how do we pay him? Well, the answer comes later. But understand, we are doing this. So let's come back to our prodigal. He is desperate. What are we going to do with him? Marvin Olasky in the Tragedy of American Compassion tells the history of American compassion. And he highlights that before the Great Depression, after the Great Depression was a great change. Charity in those days were focusing on effective charity. The focus in those days was a long-term outreach. Today's charity is almost all about quick fixes. In chapter 6, Olasky puts us together 7 marks that will define what effective charity looks like. So our first one that we're going to talk about is affiliation. So again, let's look at our poor, desperate, broken, hurting prodigal and walk through these 7 marks with him. His best answer is to go back to his father. That's what affiliation is. Let's take a look at this next slide here so you can see what affiliation. The best is him to take care of himself, and then his family being the first safety net. God created that element of safety, and the family was designed to do that. But since we are paying him to stay in this mode of homelessness, addiction, mental illness, unstable employment, he doesn't even consider that option. So he would continue to fall. If you think about the safety net, get further and further away from himself. He does not have the ability to come to himself because he gets further away. And then the church. Here at the Gospel Rescue Mission, we are the hands and arms of the church. We are here for him. If he would come into the church, we could help him heal of that shame. We could help him work on what it takes to get back to his father. But because we pay him to stay out there, he may not choose life change. We pay him to panhandle and beg and live in unstable housing. We might even pay him to go live in another community so we don't have to look at him. We call it sending him home. That is a shame, but we're pushing him further away. Ultimately, he keeps falling until he hits that government safety net. And at that government safety net, that furthest away from the individual, the furthest away from the family, the furthest away from the church, the further he gets out, the less he has to look at his own choice. He refuses, as long as he refuses to take any responsibility for his life, our prodigal continues to fall and plummet. But in that government safety net, he is not required to make amends, nor take responsibility for his choices, nor make any changes. He has nothing that he has to do to receive that money. Some would say, oh, it's not his fault. He has a disease. We can't expect anything out of him. It's his mental illness. They were not holding him responsible for anything. Our hope and our prayer at the Gospel Rescue Mission is that the very real emotional, physical, spiritual pain will cause him to come to himself. And he will come to the church ready for change. Which takes us to our second mark, which is called bonding. At the Gospel Rescue Mission, we work to get to know our people and connect with them. We see their addictions, their hurts, and their hang-ups, but more so, when the men and women come in, we see the potential in them. We see them as possible assets to our community. We live with this hope for all of them. Olasky's third mark is called categorization. The simple term, the more modern term that we use of this is called like a triage sort of process. So we have some that are going to show up to us and they're just going to need some intensive, deeper help that we just cannot serve. We refer them out to other agencies. We do what we can, but for the most part, we have to refer them out. We have some who have worked through their addictions and some other challenges, and they just need to be prepared for a job. We will work with them to help them move forward. We have some, and this is most of those who show up with us, need a challenge. For those, we do a complete assessment with them. We develop a potential and personal plan with them. And then we talk with them about their potential and remind them of who they are in Christ. We do all that with them. Many, though, show up and they just want a handout. If our beloved prodigal falls into this category, what he's saying is he wants his father to pay for his addictions and support his other pain-inducing behaviors. For those in this category, it might be more honest to say that they really want their Uncle Sam to pay for their addictions and support their other pain-inducing behaviors. For those that fall into this category, this is a very painful place, but we have to trust that God is sovereign and he can protect them until they're comfortable enough to come to themselves, to move back to the middle of that circle when we talked back about affiliation. The fourth mark of Olasky's book of Tragedy of American Compassion is discernment. How do we figure out how to best serve these men and women? It takes the Holy Spirit's help. It takes prayer. It takes observation. It requires us to listen to words and actions. Because we have bonded with them, we see that when something changes, we can see how our prodigal hero is valuing himself or devaluing himself. We can see when there's something that has changed. Olasky's fifth mark is called exchange. Now, for 51 years in a row at this point in my life, I have this streak going. For 51 years in a row, I've had a birthday. And on many of those birthdays, I received a birthday card with some cash in it. And it's just fun money. I don't use that to pay bills. I use it to have fun. I might get ice cream or something fun to do. I might just, but it never is, it's more serious. It's never serious. It's something I just fun to be able to do. And it's true that when we're given something, we simply do not value it the same way as when we earn it, when we have it, we've done the work for it. If you live on handouts long enough, you move from gratitude to an idea of entitlement. And this has happened for many of the men and women we serve. Because we see value in the men and women we serve, we exchange room and board for 6 hours of work a week through our Work Start program. They also earn their toiletries and clothing in much the same way. This communicates something very important to them. It communicates to them that they have value. Their work has value. Their life matters. The sixth mark of effective charity is freedom. In poverty, just the way things work out, when you have limited resources, you are limited in where you can live, where you could spend your time, what you could eat. All those things are limited. Imagine your life without freedom. How would you live? How would you think? How would you believe? The truth is that when I think about it, when I put myself in those shoes, I might be able to be alive. And most of our programs that we have out there for others keep people alive, but they do not help them to live. Freedom is truly living. And then our most important mark, our seventh mark, is God. See, I started doing this work almost 21 years ago, and I thought I was going to fix all these people. And the truth is, I cannot, but I can introduce them to a healer, and the healer can make all the difference in their life. Now, to finish up this whole video, as we've worked through the 7 marks of effective charity: affiliation, bonding, categorization, uh, discernment, exchange, freedom, and God, I want us to understand what's at stake here. And you may have figured out from that first part as I talked through this that we, the taxpayers, those that give money to panhandlers and those that deliver meals out to those who are camping anywhere in the city parks or in front of buildings or down by the river, wherever they're camping out, are paying to keep them in that life of desperation. Think about the bigger picture. In 1966, President Johnson declared the war on poverty when the poverty rate was 13%. From that day to this, we've spent over $61 trillion. Trillion. $61 trillion. Nonprofits and churches have also given into that pot. Much has been thrown into this. Our current poverty rate is still about 13%. We have gained nothing except dependency, broken relationships, and more pain. The Gospel Rescue Mission, for 1 month of service, we can do all that. We can give them food, shelter. We can meet all 7 of the marks that I talk about. And we can see new life. For $577, that's 1 full month. 3 meals a day. Love, care, hope. That's the value statement. $577 gives all that to one person for a full month. Compare that to 4 weeks in a jail. It's meeting none of the marks. And in fact, many ways, jails and prisons are like college for criminals. You'd be paying $1,350. So my challenge to you, my question to you is, support the Gospel Rescue Mission as we meet those 7 marks, as we guarantee opportunity for everyone who wants a life change, a place to stay, a place to receive hope, a place to experience who God is. At the Gospel Rescue Mission, we know our people, we challenge our people, and we introduce them to God.